The night my best friend broke up with his girlfriend, I didn't think I'd end up holding him in my arms while he cried in my bed. I mean, that sounds dramatic, right? But it happened. It really happened. Liam and I had been friends since freshman year of college. Dorm room neighbors turned inseparable. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, loud, charming without trying, and always surrounded by people who wanted a piece of him. I was more low-key, studio art major, quiet, better at expressing myself through sketches than words. But for some reason, we just clicked. I think part of me always had a thing for him, if I'm being honest. I buried it deep though. Way too risky. He had a long-term girlfriend, was the definition of straight, and we were just close. Like, share your fries, share your secrets. Close. I know what song he'll play next without asking. Kinda close. So when he called me out of nowhere one Friday night, voice shaky, asking if he could come over, I didn't ask questions. I just told him the door was open. 20 minutes later, he walked in like a ghost. Eyes red, hoodie half-zipped, like he hadn't eaten all day. He didn't even take off his shoes, just collapsed onto my couch, head in his hands. "She ended it," he muttered. I sat beside him slowly, giving him space, but not too much. "What happened?" He didn't answer for a long time, just sat there, staring at the coffee table like it held the answers. Finally he said, "She said I wasn't fully there. Emotionally, like I was holding something back." I nodded slowly. "Do you think she was right?" He hesitated, and that pause, just that, made my stomach flip. "I don't know," he said eventually. "Maybe. I've been confused about a lot of stuff." I didn't push, just let the silence settle. Eventually, we ended up in my room. It was late, and he didn't want to go home, said he couldn't be alone. So we sat on the bed, backs against the wall, knees touching. And even though he didn't say much more, I could feel everything he wasn't saying. When he finally lay down, turning onto his side to face me, I did the same. We were inches apart. His eyes were puffy but open, searching mine. "I don't want to talk anymore," he whispered. "Can I just stay like this?" I nodded. And then, slowly, he reached out and placed his hand on my chest, over my heartbeat. Not in a sexual way, just grounding, intimate. I didn't move. I couldn't. I was frozen in that moment, terrified of what it meant, terrified of what I wanted it to mean. And then he said something I'll never forget. "Have you ever thought about being with someone you weren't supposed to want?" My throat went dry. I couldn't breathe, let alone answer. But my silence seemed to say enough, because his eyes softened. "I think that's what I've been holding back," he whispered, "and I don't want to hold it back anymore." I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of what Liam said. Well, no, exactly because of what he said. After that moment, the air between us shifted. I stayed still, eyes wide open in the dark, his hand still resting on my chest like it had always belonged there. He didn't say another word, and eventually, I thought he might have fallen asleep. But I didn't. I was too aware of every breath he took, too aware of how close he was, too afraid to move. Like if I shifted even an inch, the moment would disappear, like I'd dreamt the whole thing. The morning came slowly, pale light creeping through the blinds. When I finally dared to move, Liam stirred. His hand slipped away, and for a second, I almost grabbed it again, just to keep it there. "Morning," he murmured, his voice hoarse from sleep. I turned my head, trying to act like I hadn't been awake for hours. "Hey." He sat up, rubbed his eyes and stared at the floor. The quiet between us felt too loud, filled with everything we weren't saying. I sat up too, crossing my legs under the blanket. "You okay?" I asked. He hesitated. "Yeah. I think I just needed that, to be somewhere safe." I nodded, pretending that didn't kind of break my heart. "You don't have to explain anything," I said. "If last night was just, I don't know, a moment, it's okay." But Liam shook his head. No, I meant it. I froze. What? What I said. About holding something back. About being confused. It wasn't about my ex. He looked up, finally meeting my eyes. It was about you. My stomach dropped. I think I've been pushing something down for a long time, he continued. And last night, I couldn't anymore. I don't know what I'm doing or what it means, but being here with you, it felt right. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. All I could do was stare at him. I'm not saying I suddenly have it all figured out, he added quickly, but I know how I felt, lying next to you, like I could finally breathe. The room spun a little. I'd spent years making peace with the idea that Liam would never feel this way, that I'd always be just his friend, safe, distant, platonic. And now here he was, sitting on my bed, telling me he wasn't so sure anymore. Why now? I asked quietly. Why tell me this now? He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I don't know, maybe because I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Maybe because you've always been the one person I never wanted to lose, and last night made me realize I might have already lost a lot by pretending. I looked down, my heart thudding in my chest. So what happens now? He reached across the space between us, gently touched my hand. I don't know, he said, but I don't want to pretend anymore. I stared at our hands, at his fingers curled around mine. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a confession of love. It was something realer, a step. And in that moment, it was enough. We didn't talk about it again for a few days. Which sounds weird, I know. You'd think something like that. Your best friend, maybe, possibly catching feelings for you, would kind of demand a follow-up. But life kept moving, and neither of us knew how to hit pause. Liam went back to his apartment, said he needed space to think. I told him I understood, and I did, but that didn't make it easier. The days that followed were strange. We texted like usual, dumb memes and quick updates, but under every message was this heavy, silent question, so what now? I was in the middle of sketching a commission piece one night when I heard a knock. It was close to midnight, and I knew it was him before I even opened the door. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept properly since that night. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside. He didn't wait for an invite, just kicked off his shoes and sank onto the couch like he'd never left. I couldn't stop thinking about it, he said without looking at me. About you. About how it felt. I sat down beside him, not too close. Just enough. I didn't know how to talk about it, I said. I didn't want to push. He finally looked at me. I don't think you could ever push me away. And God, the way he said that, like it was a fact, did something to me. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted. I don't know if I'm bi, or just figuring myself out, or if this is just about you. But I know it's not nothing, and I know I don't want to lose this. This, I echoed. You, us. I nodded slowly, my throat dry. Okay. He laughed, this soft, relieved sound. That's it? You thought I'd make a spreadsheet? No, I guess I thought you'd be mad. Mad that you might have feelings for me? I shook my head. Liam, I've spent years pretending I didn't. He blinked. You wait, what? Come on, I said. You really think I didn't notice how hard it was to be around you sometimes? I buried it. But yeah, it was there. A quiet fell between us, and then he shifted closer, just a little. Can I stay over again? He asked. You don't have to ask. He leaned his head on my shoulder, and we sat like that for a long time. My heart was beating so loud, I was sure he could hear it. And then, just as I started to relax, he whispered something that shattered me all over again. I've thought about kissing you. I didn't move, didn't breathe. You don't have to say anything, he added quickly. I just needed to say it. I turned slightly, meeting his eyes. What if I've thought about it too? He stared at me, eyes wide, searching. Then slowly, so slowly, he leaned in, and I let him. The kiss wasn't perfect. It was hesitant, soft, and so full of uncertainty that it almost broke my heart. But it was real, and it was Liam. His lips brushed mine, like a question he didn't quite know how to ask. I answered by leaning in, closing the space between us, anchoring him with a hand on his shoulder. His breath caught, and for a second, we just stayed there, not moving, just feeling. When we finally pulled apart, he didn't speak. Neither did I. We just sat there, staring at each other in the dark of my apartment, our faces inches away. I could still feel the ghost of his lips on mine, the quiet electricity of it buzzing through my chest. "I didn't mean for that to happen," he said eventually. "I know. But I don't regret it." That made my heart do something stupid. We lay down after that, side by side on the bed. Not touching, but closer than we'd ever been without a joke or a dare in between. At some point, his hand found mine again, under the blanket this time, like it was a secret between us. That night he didn't cry, he didn't talk much either. Just held on, like if he let go, something important might unravel. The next morning was awkward, but not in a bad way, more like cautious. He sat at my kitchen counter eating cereal in one of my old hoodies, his hair sticking up in every direction. He looked soft, normal, nothing like someone who just kissed his best friend for the first time. "Do you feel weird?" I asked, pouring my coffee. He glanced at me over his spoon. "Yeah, but also..." "Not really?" I laughed. "Same." He chewed for a second, then set the bowl down. "I think I've been carrying this around for a while. Not just feelings, but confusion. Guilt. Wanting something and being scared of it." I nodded slowly. "I get that." "I don't want to rush into anything," he said. "I need to figure out what this all means." "That's okay," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." He gave me a look. One of those old, familiar Liam looks that used to mean, "You're my person. Don't overthink it." Only now it felt different, deeper. "Thanks," he said, voice quieter now. Later that day, he left. Said he needed to see his sister, clear his head. He hugged me at the door, and I almost didn't let go. But I did. And then I spent the rest of the weekend trying not to lose my mind. Because here's the thing. When you've wanted something for so long, finally having it, even just a glimpse, is terrifying. You start to question everything. What if he changes his mind? What if it ruins the friendship? What if that kiss was just a fluke? But when my phone lit up Sunday night with a message from him, I couldn't stop myself from smiling. "I miss you. Can I come over?" I didn't reply right away. Not because I didn't want to. I did badly, but because I sat there staring at his text like it was some kind of trap. Like the second I said yes, the spell might break and he'd snap back to being the Liam I knew before. But that Liam wasn't the one who kissed me. And I wasn't the same, either. So I just typed, "Doors unlocked." 15 minutes later, he was back. Hoodie pulled tight over his head, looking like he hadn't slept much since the last time we saw each other. He didn't say anything at first, just stepped inside, dropped his bag, and looked at me like I was both the answer and the question. Then, quietly, "Hey, hey," I said, equally quiet. There was a weird beat of silence, both of us standing there like we were in a scene from a movie neither of us knew the script to. And then he crossed the space between us, reached out, and pulled me into a hug. A real one this time. Long, warm, no bro slap on the back. Just arms around me like he needed to be there. "I miss this," he murmured. I closed my eyes. "I missed you." We didn't kiss again that night. We didn't need to. Instead, we lay on the couch, legs tangled under a blanket, the TV playing some random show neither of us was watching. At one point, he fell asleep with his head on my chest, and I stayed awake just listening to his breathing. It felt normal. And not. The next morning, we actually talked. Like, really talked. He sat at my kitchen table, cradling his coffee like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "I told my sister," he said. I raised my eyebrows. "Told her what?" He looked up at me, eyes clear for once. "That I kissed you. That I think I like you. That I don't really know what that means yet, but I'm done pretending I don't feel anything. I blinked. Wow. What did she say? She said it was about time. We both laughed, and the tension in my chest finally loosened a little. You're not scared? I asked. Terrified, he said without missing a beat, but also not at all. I sat across from him, trying to take it all in. So what now? He reached across the table, linked his fingers with mine. Now we figure it out. Together, if you want to. I squeezed his hand. I've wanted that longer than I'll ever admit. He smiled, and this time, there was no doubt in his eyes. That night, as we got ready for bed, he watched me from across the room. Not in a lustful way, just quiet, full, like he was seeing me for the first time. I turned off the light and got under the blanket, expecting him to do the same. But instead, he came around the bed and kissed me again. This time, deeper, slower, like he'd made a decision. And then he whispered against my lips, "Stay with me tonight." I nodded, heart pounding, and he did. We didn't have this that night. I think it's important to say that up front, because everything in me wanted it. Hell, everything in him probably did too. But that wasn't what it was about. Not yet. That night was about the quiet, about warmth, about laying in bed with someone who used to just be your best friend, and realizing they might be something else now. He curled up beside me, his hand resting on my chest again, just like before. Only this time his fingers traced slow, nervous circles on the fabric of my shirt. I could feel every one of them like a spark. "You okay?" I asked into the dark. He nodded against my shoulder. "Just thinking." "About?" he hesitated. "Everything." I let him sit in the silence. Sometimes Liam needed that. Time to stew in his own head before he let anything out. I'd gotten used to it over the years, but this time felt different. He wasn't shutting me out, just sifting through things slowly, carefully, like he didn't want to break something by rushing. "I feel like I'm walking across a frozen lake," he said quietly, "and every step could be the one that cracks it." I turned slightly, so we were face to face. "Then take small steps." He looked at me for a long moment, then leaned in and kissed me again, gently this time, thoughtfully. And just like that, the fear in his eyes softened into something else. Trust. The next few weeks were this weird, beautiful limbo. He wasn't out, not to his friends, not to most of his family. We weren't telling people we were together, because we weren't really sure what we were yet, but he kept coming over, kept sleeping beside me, kept finding reasons to hold my hand or touch my shoulder or kiss me when no one was looking. And every time he did, a part of me healed I didn't know was broken. One night, we went to a small house party. One of my art classmates. It wasn't huge, just a few people, drinks, music humming in the background. I wasn't even going to bring Liam, but he insisted, said he wanted to see my world for once. At some point in the night, I was standing in the kitchen talking to a couple of people when I felt a hand on my lower back. I turned, expecting someone reaching past me, but it was him. He didn't say anything, just let his hand rest there while I talked. And when I looked at him, he was already looking at me, not like a friend, not like someone afraid anymore. That night, back at my place, he kissed me the second we shut the door, rougher this time, needy. "I keep trying to stop wanting you," he whispered against my mouth, "but I don't think I can." "Then don't," I said. He looked at me like that was the first time anyone had given him permission to feel what he felt. And then we ended up in my bed, closer, hands bolder, lips everywhere. Still no intimacy, but we undressed each other slowly, stayed tangled under the covers until we fell asleep, skin to skin, limbs knotted together like we'd done it 100 times before. That was the night I realized we'd already crossed the frozen lake, and nothing had cracked beneath us. The thing about crossing lines is that once you do, you start to forget they were ever there. That's how it felt with Liam. What started as awkward, hesitant touches turned into routines. His toothbrush next to mine, his jacket draped over my chair, his laugh echoing through my apartment like it had always belonged. But real life didn't pause for us to figure things out. His ex started texting again, nothing romantic, just closure stuff. But I could see how it threw him off. He got quiet again, distracted, like parts of himself were still catching up with the choices he was making. "You okay?" I asked one evening after dinner. We were curled up on the couch, a movie playing but long since forgotten. He nodded too fast. "Yeah, just tired." I didn't press at first, but over the next few days, the distance grew. He still came over, still kissed me goodnight, still reached for my hand, but something was off. Finally, I called it out. "If you want out, just tell me," I said one night, trying to keep my voice even. "I won't hate you." He blinked like I'd slapped him. "What? No, God, no, He looked down at his hands, fidgeting with the edge of the blanket. "I'm scared," he admitted. "I keep waiting for the part where you decide this is too messy, that I'm too messy." I stepped closer, sat beside him. "Do you want this?" His answer was immediate. "Yes." "Then let's stop waiting for it to fall apart." He looked up, and in his eyes I saw it. That fear, but also something deeper, something steadier. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." And from that moment on, something shifted again. Not the romantic kind of shift, not the sexy or dramatic kind. Just stability, like we'd made a quiet pact with each other. It still wasn't perfect. There were bumps. We fought over little things. Me being too quiet when I was upset. Him pulling away without explaining why, but we always came back. Always talked it out. Then, one weekend, we went back to his parents' place. They were having a barbecue. Nothing major, just a few cousins and some burgers on the grill. His mom hugged me tight. "Glad to see you back around, sweetheart." We weren't out. Not officially. But during dinner, when I reached for my glass and our fingers brushed, he didn't pull away. And later, when the sun was setting, and everyone was gathered around the fire pit, he looked over at me and smiled. Not a friend smile. A "you're mine" smile. And for the first time, he took my hand. In front of everyone. No announcement, no speech, just a small, quiet truth. And nobody flinched. That moment around the fire pit changed everything. And nothing. Liam didn't say a word when he took my hand. He just squeezed gently, his thumb brushing across my knuckles like it was the most natural thing in the world. No one said anything. No one looked surprised. His mom smiled, like she'd always known. And maybe she had. The drive home was quiet in that peaceful kind of way. The windows cracked, late summer air drifting in, his playlist humming low from the speakers. I watched the way the light from passing cars played across his face, soft, golden, honest. He reached over and rested his hand on my knee. No words, just presence. When we got back to my place, we didn't rush to bed. We stayed in the kitchen, barefoot, eating leftover cookies from his mom's Tupperware. He leaned against the counter, and I stood in front of him, not touching, just watching. "You've changed," I said finally. He raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? You seem lighter." He smiled, slow and real. "I feel lighter." I stepped in closer. "You were scared." "I still am, a little." "But you're not running." He reached for me, hands slipping under the hem of my shirt, resting against my hips. "No," he said, "I'm not." And that night, everything just clicked. The push and pull, the uncertainty, the long buildup of years spent close but not close enough. It all melted away. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. We made love for the first time. Slow, quiet, unhurried, like we were rewriting everything we'd ever known about each other. His hands traced lines down my back like he was learning a new language. My name on his lips felt like the softest prayer. After, we stayed tangled together under the covers, hearts sinking, breaths slowing. I used to think loving you would ruin everything, he whispered against my neck, but now I don't know how I ever lived without it. I didn't cry, but I could have, because he wasn't just my best friend anymore. He was the person who saw me in every shade: quiet, angry, nervous, selfish, messy, and still wanted more. Still chose me. And I chose him right back.